Let's be honest, we all know that strange pull we feel when someone starts to drift away. The moment they become less available, something inside us kicks in and makes us want them even more. And this isn't because they're the right person for us. It's because of how our brain is wired. When something feels scarce, we instantly attach more value to it. Think about it when you hear the phrase limited edition or only a few left. You suddenly feel a rush of urgency. It doesn't even matter if you really wanted that thing before. Just the idea that it's slipping away makes it more desirable. That same psychology plays out in relationships. When someone's affection, time, or attention starts to feel limited, we start to chase. But here's the catch: scarcity doesn't equal quality. Just because something is rare doesn't mean it's good for you. If someone gives you only fragments of their attention, if they text you once in a while but disappear for days, your brain might interpret that inconsistency as a sign that you need to work harder to earn them. Suddenly, you're investing your emotional energy into proving your worth to someone who has shown you very little. And instead of asking, do they treat me with consistency? You ask yourself, what can I do to get more of them? That's the trap. The truth is, this isn't about them being special. It's about your brain confusing scarcity with value. Imagine walking into a store where a single pair of shoes is left on the shelf. You don't even know if it's your size, but you immediately feel this pull to grab it. You think, if it's the last one, it must be important. In relationships, we do the same. We chase the last shoe, even if it doesn't fit. What makes this even trickier is that scarcity ignites our competitive side. The less someone gives us, the more we feel like we need to win them. We frame it as a challenge, and suddenly, love becomes less about a genuine connection and more about proving that we can achieve the impossible. But when you step back, you realize you're chasing someone not because they're right for you, but because they're hard to get. And being hard to get doesn't make someone a good partner. It just makes them unavailable. You see, the people who are actually right for us often don't feel scarce at all. They show up. They're consistent. They're reliable. But consistency rarely triggers the same dopamine hit that scarcity does. The chase, the uncertainty, the emotional roller coaster, that's what gives us the rush. And so, without realizing it, we confuse excitement with connection and scarcity with love. But that's not love. That's just our brain reacting to a scarcity trigger. The real challenge is being able to separate how someone makes you feel in the moment from what kind of partner they actually are. Because if you only measure your desire by scarcity, you'll always be chasing people who are wrong for you. It's not about their worth. It's about how your mind reacts when it feels like something is slipping away. The sooner you see that, the sooner you stop giving value to people who haven't earned it. And that's when you open yourself to love that doesn't just feel rare, but feels right. So much of the reason we chase people who are wrong for us comes down to a quiet but powerful craving for validation. We don't always admit it, but the truth is that attention feels like proof of our worth. When someone chooses us, even for a moment, we translate that into, I matter. And when that attention is inconsistent, we don't question its quality. We just want more of it, like a drug. That's why people who are wrong for us can have such a hold. They dangle just enough validation to keep us hooked. And we keep chasing because our self-worth feels tied to whether or not they approve of us. Think about the way a slot machine works. You pull the lever, and most of the time nothing happens. But every once in a while you win. That unpredictable reward keeps people playing for hours. In the same way, when someone gives you mixed signals, pulling away, then showing up, then pulling away again, your brain interprets their occasional attention as a win. And instead of walking away from someone who can't give you steady love, you double down, hoping for the next moment of validation. What makes this dangerous is that it tricks us into thinking that if we could just earn their consistent love, then we'd finally feel enough. But that's an illusion. No one's approval can fill the space inside you where your own self-worth belongs. If you build your value on their attention, you'll always be chasing because their attention will never be stable enough to sustain you. It's not designed to. People who are wrong for us often thrive on giving us just enough to keep us near, but not enough to let us feel secure. And because we're addicted to that small taste of validation, we mistake their inconsistency for intensity. The saddest part is that many of us already know this on some level. We know that when someone disappears and then reappears, it leaves us more anxious than fulfilled. We know that their compliments mean less when they come in between long stretches of neglect. And yet, the moment they look at us a certain way, the moment they say something kind, our whole body lights up as if they've just handed us the missing piece of ourselves. That's not love, that's dependency. But here's the shift that changes everything. Validation doesn't have to come from someone who can't show up for you. Real worth doesn't come from how much someone else wants you. It comes from how deeply you've learned to want yourself. When you build a strong sense of self, attention stops feeling like oxygen. It becomes something extra, not something essential. And that changes who you chase, because suddenly you're not desperate for crumbs from the wrong person. You're holding out for someone who can give you the consistency you already give yourself. And let's be clear, chasing validation doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. We're wired to seek acceptance. But when that acceptance becomes the hook someone uses to keep you attached, you're no longer chasing love, you're chasing approval. And approval, no matter how sweet it feels in the moment, can never replace the stability of a genuine connection. Once you see that, you stop giving your heart away to people who only offer you fleeting highs, and you begin to reserve it for someone who doesn't make you question your worth in the first place. There's another powerful reason we end up chasing people who are wrong for us, and it has less to do with the person in front of us and more to do with the stories written long ago in our past. Many times, we confuse pain with passion simply because it feels familiar. If you grew up in an environment where love felt unpredictable, where affection was conditional, or where you had to work to earn attention, then chaos can start to feel like home. And when something feels like home, no matter how unhealthy it is, you're naturally drawn to it. This is why some of us mistake emotional turbulence for connection. When someone is hot and cold, when they give us affection one day and withdraw it the next, it triggers the same emotional dance we experienced years ago. Our subconscious says, this is what love feels like. Not because it is love, but because it matches the pattern our nervous system was trained to expect. The calmness of consistency can feel foreign, even boring, while the unpredictability of rejection and reward feels strangely intoxicating. And so, without realizing it, we chase after partners who replicate our earliest experiences of love, even if those experiences left us wounded. The problem is that familiarity often disguises itself as chemistry. You meet someone and you feel that spark, that rush, that pull you can't explain. You convince yourself it must mean they're special. But what if that spark isn't love at all? What if it's your old wounds recognizing a familiar pattern? That chemistry might simply be your brain saying, I know this feeling. I've been here before. And because you've been conditioned to associate that feeling with love, you follow it, even if it leads you into pain. This is why some of us keep ending up in the same types of relationships, even when we swear we're choosing differently. It's not always about what you consciously want. It's about what your subconscious recognizes. And until you heal the part of you that equates chaos with love, you'll keep chasing people who give you chaos. It's not because you're broken or foolish. It's because your nervous system is still seeking out what feels safe. And sometimes, heartbreakingly, what feels safe is also what hurts. But here's the liberating truth: you are not bound to repeat the past. The moment you start to see that what feels like passion may actually be trauma reenactment, you gain power. You can pause and ask, am I drawn to this person because they're good for me? Or because they feel like what I've always known? That awareness alone can interrupt the cycle. Healing is not about denying your attraction. It's about questioning it. It's about creating space between the rush of familiarity and the choice of whether to follow it. Healthy love might not trigger the same dramatic highs and lows. It may not feel like a storm you can't resist. It often feels steady, safe, grounding, and at first that can be disorienting if you're used to chaos. But over time, that steadiness becomes its own kind of passion, one that doesn't burn you out or leave you questioning your worth. The real test isn't whether someone gives you butterflies, it's whether they give you peace. When you understand that you stop chasing people who ignite your wounds and you start choosing people who nourish your soul. One of the biggest traps we fall into when chasing someone who is wrong for us is letting our ego run the show. Instead of asking the simple and honest question, do I even want this person in my life? We get consumed by the much more dangerous question, why don't they want me? That shift changes everything because the focus is no longer on whether they're good for us, but on whether we can win them over. And once our ego gets involved, love stops being about connection and starts being about conquest. When someone pulls away or doesn't fully choose us, our pride feels attacked. We begin to think, if I were truly enough, they would stay. That thought alone can keep us locked in a cycle of chasing, not because this person is meeting our needs or making us happy, but because we want to prove to ourselves that we are worthy of being chosen. It becomes less about the relationship itself and more about securing a victory. And the irony is, even if we win, if they finally give us attention, if they finally come back, the satisfaction is fleeting. Because deep down, our ego might feel soothed, but our heart still knows they aren't right. This is why so many people stay stuck in toxic dynamics. They confuse rejection with challenge and challenge with attraction. When someone is difficult to win, they assume it must mean this person is valuable. But often, the difficulty has nothing to do with value. It has everything to do with incompatibility. Still, our ego doesn't want to hear that. Our ego thrives on unfinished business, on proving we can succeed where we once failed, and that's why we keep knocking on closed doors. If you've ever noticed yourself thinking more about winning someone back than about whether life with them would actually make you happy, that's the ego at work. It's not love, it's not connection, it's competition. And competition has no place in intimacy. You don't need to win someone in order to deserve love. The right love doesn't need to be won at all. It's offered freely, without games, without the constant tug of war. But the ego hates to let go. It whispers, if you walk away, it means you weren't enough. And so, instead of moving on, we double down, chasing harder, giving more, twisting ourselves into shapes we were never meant to fit into. We forget that rejection often says more about them than it does about us. Not being chosen by someone who is wrong for you isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their inability to show up in the way you deserve. The real power comes when you flip the script. Instead of asking, why don't they want me? You ask, do I truly want them? Do they add peace to my life? Do they meet me where I am? These questions strip the ego out of the equation and bring you back to your truth, because love isn't about winning, it's about aligning. And if alignment isn't there, it doesn't matter how much you fight to prove yourself, you'll never feel fulfilled. The moment you stop chasing people to soothe your ego is the moment you free yourself. You no longer waste your energy trying to convince someone of your worth because you already know it. You no longer measure your value by someone else's choices because you understand that the right person won't make you fight for basic recognition. And when that shift happens, rejection stops feeling like an attack and starts feeling like redirection. You stop asking, why not me? and start saying, "Thank you for showing me who isn't for me." That's when the ego finally steps aside and love, real love, gets to take its place. One of the most seductive traps in relationships is falling in love with potential. We don't always fall for people as they are. We fall for the version of them we imagine they could become. That vision, that fantasy, is often far more powerful than reality. When someone shows us glimpses of kindness, moments of passion, or flashes of who they might be if they ever truly showed up, our mind starts to construct a story. If they just commit, if they just heal, if they just grow a little more, then this could be incredible. And so, we don't chase the person, we chase the possibility. But here's the hard truth: a relationship cannot be built on potential. Potential is like a beautiful house you've sketched on paper. It looks perfect in your mind, but until it's actually built, you can't live in it. Yet so many of us are willing to wait in the dirt, convincing ourselves that if we're patient enough, loyal enough, loving enough, one day the house will stand tall. In reality, sometimes the person never becomes that version. And even if they could, it's not your job to build them into it. This is why so many people feel stuck. They say, "But I've seen how amazing they can be." Yes, you've seen flashes of it, but flashes aren't enough to sustain a relationship. Those glimpses keep you holding on, hoping, waiting, even when their consistent behavior tells a different story. You excuse the hurt because you've tasted the sweetness. You forgive the absence because you've glimpsed the presence. And slowly, you start to ignore who they really are because you're so attached to who they might become. The danger in this is that you lose sight of yourself. You stop asking whether you're fulfilled right now, and you start asking how long you can hold out for the fantasy. You trade your present peace for the hope of a future that may never arrive. And the longer you stay, the harder it is to walk away, because you've invested not just in a person, but in a dream. And dreams are much harder to let go of than people. But think about this. What if the person in front of you is already showing you exactly who they are? What if the inconsistency, the lack of commitment, the avoidance, that is who they are right now, and maybe who they will continue to be? Would you still choose them if you stripped away the fantasy? Because if the answer is no, then you're not really in love with them. You're in love with your imagination. Real love isn't about who someone could be in theory. It's about who they are in practice, day after day. It's about their actions, not just their promises. It's about how they show up when it matters, not just when it's convenient. And when you stop chasing potential, you free yourself to find someone who already embodies the qualities you value, without you having to wait, hope, or fix. It's not easy to let go of the fantasy because it means mourning the future you dreamed of. But the truth is, every day you spend waiting for someone to become who you wish they were is a day you could be with someone who already is. Love isn't about holding out for a someday. It's about choosing the person who shows you, right now, that they are capable of loving you the way you deserve. When you finally accept that, you stop chasing dreams wrapped in human form, and you start opening your heart to reality. The kind of reality that doesn't just promise love, but delivers it. There's one final layer to why we chase people who are wrong for us, and it has nothing to do with them being exciting or scarce or full of potential. Sometimes the truth is that we are afraid of the people who are actually right for us. As strange as it sounds, stability can feel terrifying. Real intimacy requires us to show up fully, to be seen without the masks, to let someone into the most vulnerable parts of who we are. And for many, that feels far scarier than chasing someone who keeps their distance. When someone healthy and consistent enters our life, they don't trigger the same roller coaster of emotions. They're not playing games. They're not keeping us guessing. They're just there. Reliable, steady, ready to love. And if you've been conditioned to equate love with chaos, that steadiness can feel dull, even boring. You might even mistake it for a lack of chemistry. But what's really happening is that your nervous system is rejecting peace because it's unfamiliar. You're more comfortable running after someone who won't commit than sitting still with someone who actually does. At a deeper level, chasing unavailable people can be a form of self-protection. If you're always running after someone who won't fully choose you, then you never have to face the vulnerability of being chosen. You never have to confront the possibility that someone might see you as you are and still decide to stay. That kind of intimacy can feel overwhelming, so instead we sabotage ourselves by investing in relationships where intimacy is never really on the table. It feels safer to chase someone who won't give us love than to risk receiving love and fearing we'll lose it. But here's the thing. Avoiding healthy love doesn't protect you from pain, it only guarantees it. Because no matter how thrilling the chase may feel, the outcome is always emptiness. You can't build a future with someone who isn't emotionally available, no matter how much you want to. You can't create security with someone who thrives on keeping you insecure. And you can't experience the depth of intimacy you secretly long for if you keep running from the people who are willing to give it. This is why the real work isn't just about spotting the wrong people, but also about healing the part of you that fears the right ones. It's about learning to sit with the discomfort of stability until it feels natural. It's about teaching your body and your mind that love doesn't have to be chaotic to be real. True passion isn't found in drama. It's found in the quiet certainty of someone who shows up for you again and again. The irony is that once you allow yourself to accept healthy love, you realize it was never boring at all. What once felt too steady now feels grounding. What once felt predictable now feels like freedom. You stop mistaking peace for emptiness and start seeing it as the foundation for everything you actually want: trust, intimacy, growth, and a love that lasts. So if you find yourself chasing people who are wrong for you, ask yourself, is it really about them? Or is it about what you're afraid to receive? Because sometimes the biggest reason we run toward chaos is that we're too scared to walk into the calm. But the calm, the love that doesn't make you question yourself, the love that doesn't make you chase, that's where you finally find what you've been searching for all along. Imagine for a moment that you're trying to quit sugar. You know it's bad for you. You know it's messing with your health. But the moment you try to cut it out, your body starts craving it even more. You walk past a bakery, and suddenly that one smell of fresh bread or chocolate cake is enough to send your willpower crashing. That's not weakness, it's chemistry. And the same thing happens when you're trying to move on from someone you once loved. Your brain is wired to associate that person with reward, and when the connection breaks, the craving doesn't just disappear, it intensifies. This is what I call the dopamine trap. Every time you thought of them, every time you laughed together, every intimate moment, your brain was reinforcing a reward loop. It was saying, this person equals pleasure, this person equals safety, this person equals love. So when they're gone, your brain panics. It doesn't say, well, they weren't right for me anyway. It says, where's my fix? That's why so many people who know, logically, that the relationship was wrong for them, still find themselves reaching for the phone, scrolling through old pictures, or replaying conversations at 2 a.m. Your body is literally in withdrawal. Think about the last time you were tempted to text your ex. You probably didn't even miss them in that moment. What you were missing was the hit, the reassurance of hearing their voice, the comfort of a familiar routine, the little dopamine spike that made your loneliness feel bearable. And here's the cruel irony. Your brain doesn't differentiate between healthy love and unhealthy attachment. It only cares about the rush. That's why people go back to relationships that drained them, hurt them, or made them feel small. The chemical high outweighed the rational truth. Now, if you understand that, it starts to make sense why moving on feels so much harder than we think it should be. People beat themselves up all the time. Why can't I let this go? Why do I still think about them? But the truth is, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're simply human, and your brain is doing what it's programmed to do. The problem is, if you don't recognize the trap, you'll keep confusing craving with love. You'll think, I must still love them because I can't stop thinking about them. No, you're craving the chemical pattern your brain got used to, and that's a very different thing. When you see it that way, the power shifts. Instead of saying, I need them back to feel better, you can say, I need to rewire my brain so I don't mistake craving for connection. And how do you do that? You don't starve yourself and sit there in pain, just like you wouldn't quit sugar by staring at cakes all day. You start replacing the old rewards with new ones. You build habits. You invest in new experiences. You surround yourself with people who bring you energy instead of draining it. The more your brain links reward to things beyond that old relationship, the weaker the craving becomes. This is why people who throw themselves into growth after a breakup tend to heal faster. It's not because they cared less. It's because they gave their brain new sources of dopamine. Whether it was exercise, learning a skill, reconnecting with friends, or even just reclaiming their independence. Over time, the ex stops feeling like the only source of happiness. And when that happens, you stop chasing the illusion and start living again. So the next time you catch yourself craving your ex, remember, it's not love pulling you back, it's chemistry, and chemistry can be rewired. That awareness alone is the first step to breaking free from the trap that keeps so many people stuck in cycles they were never meant to repeat.